The heavenly protectress and patroness of Belarus, Saint Euphrosyne of Polotsk, is the first East Slavonic woman to have been canonized by the Orthodox Church, and the only saint recognized by all the Christian denominations. With the power of her faith, goodness and wisdom, she contributed to establishing peace in Slavonic lands. In her native Polotsk lands, she promoted education and the Christian spiritual lifestyle. Being a political and commercial center between Eastern and Western Europe, Polotsk wielded all the prerequisites for the birth of such a unique personality that Saint Euphrosyne was and will remain. Surrounded by the eminent craftsmen, the architect Ioan, the jeweler Lazar Bogsha, inspiring her contemporaries to do good deeds, Euphrosyne was the first woman to found a convent, to build a temple, to elaborate for it a unique iconographic painting program, to order a world-famous exaltation cross for the temple, to obtain the miracle-working icon of Our Lady of Ephesus, painted by St. Luke the Evangelist. Several centuries after the end of her earthly life in the Holy Land, through the efforts of believers, the Venerable Saint Euphrosyne found eternal peace in her Polotsk cloister, having united Constantinople, Jerusalem, Kiev, and Polotsk with material and spiritual ties. In ancient times, Polotsk was among the most important European towns. In his story of the passing years, the Venerable Nestor wrote, "The Dvina flows into the Varangian Sea. So, from Rus, one can sail down the Dvina to the land of the Varangians, and from the Varangians up to Rome. It is therefore easy to conjecture that the brisk ties between Polotsk and other countries contributed to the spread of Christianity in the Polotsk Principality long before the official adoption of Christianity in Rus. In the 11th to 12th centuries, thanks to the adoption of Christianity and the spread of written language, benefited by the Byzantine culture and the impact of West European culture, the lands of the present-day Belarus entered the stage of the European history. It is not fortuitous that, on one of the most ancient maps in the world, the 13th century Epstoffer map, the medieval Rus was represented by Polotsk, along with Kiev and Novgorod. Majestic temples of Saint Sophia that were raised in the major centers of Old Ruslands, in Kiev, Novgorod and Polotsk, not only proudly competed with each other in terms of their name and dimensions, but they could also rival the salubrious temple of Saint Sophia of Constantinople, erected by the Byzantine Emperor Justinian in the 6th century. The close kinship with the Byzantine imperial house, the daughter of Polotsk Prince Vacislav Bratislavich, married Emperor Alexius Komnenos, helped in inviting skilled building crews to Polotsk. Byzantine craftsmasters participated most extensively in building temples, with their walls depicting biblical scenes, in founding monasteries that housed scriptoria for translating books from Greek into Church Slavonic, for copying and artistic styling of books. The great-great-granddaughter of Prince Vladimir of Kiev, Princess Euphrosyne, was born in around 1102 to the family of Polotsk Prince Georgy and Princess Sophia in Polotsk land, at the banks of the river Western Dvina. In those times, the river served as a route from the Northmen to the Greeks and was a major fluvial artery of Eastern Europe, bringing together the cultures of the Catholic, Orthodox, pagan rites, and the Arab world. Thanks to a strong economic, political, and cultural impact of the Latinate West, Polotsk soon entered the group of advanced lands and felt, earlier than others, the striving to independence. That striving was maintained by the activities of Polotsk princes Bratislav Izaslavich, 1001 to 1044, and the grandfather of Saint Euphrosyne of Polotsk, Vacislav Bratislavich, 1044 to 1101. It is precisely by the efforts of Vacislav that the first stone-walled temple in Belarus, the St. Sophia Cathedral, was built in the town centre in the Upper Castle Hill in the mid-11th century. The cathedral became a symbol of political independence of the Polotsk Principality, of its economic might and great cultural importance. The cathedral was the setting for the most prominent events in the Polotsk Principality: enthronement of princes, receiving of foreign ambassadors, declarations of war and peace. It had Archbishop's Cathedra. It was used for the storing of the state treasury and the books of the library founded by Prince Iziaslav, died in 1001. And it was there that the manuscripts were being written and copies of books were being made. The cathedral was first mentioned in the Lay of Igor's Warfare, 12th century, and the Life of St. Euphrosyne of Polotsk, 12th century. The St. Sophia Cathedral, where Euphrosyne received her monastic tonsure, embarked her on enlightenment activities and spiritual feat, inspired her to create one of the first convents in Rus, and to build on its territory the Saviour Transfiguration Cathedral, a genuine masterpiece of the outstanding Polotsk school of architecture. During the 12th century, Polotsk was among Rus's main centres of monumental architecture. It is precisely there that a special architectural design of the temple was developed. Its tower-like configuration and three-paddle facades accentuated the verticality of the spatial structure of the building. The traditions of Polotsk architecture had a strong impact on the art of building in stone in Smolensk, Novgorod, Grodno, Chernigov, and Vitebsk. When St. Euphrosyne was living, the Saviour Transfiguration Cathedral was adorned with frescoes, which fully survive to the present day. In terms of their survival rate, an array of frescoes in the Saviour Transfiguration Church is an absolutely unique feature of the cultural heritage of the Kievan Rus. In around 1155, not far from the Saviour cloister, the Huguenotess Euphrosyne erected the Church of the Blessed Mother of God and, attached to the church, established a men's monastery. She wanted to have there a wonder-working icon of the Mother of God, one of those that had been painted by the Apostle and Evangelist Luke, namely, the icon from the Greek town of Ephesus. The Venerable Euphrosyne sent her servant Michael to Constantinople, with plentiful gifts for Emperor Manuel Komnenos I and Patriarch Luke, to ask them to let her bring the wonder-working icon to Polotsk. Both the Emperor and the Patriarch benevolently accommodated the request of the Venerable. Constantinople was aware of her spiritual feats, great erudition, and profound faith. To satisfy the spiritual requests of the Venerable, the Emperor charged a detachment of warriors to go to Ephesus and fetch the icon. A hearty welcome, accorded to the convent envoy Michael by the Byzantine Emperor and the Patriarch, is indicative of the truly high level of his mission. It is most likely that at the same time, not without good assistance from the top-ranking ecclesiastical authorities of Constantinople, Polotsk was donated with invaluable relics: particles of the holy tree with a drop of Christ's blood, particles of the holy sepulchre and the sepulchre of the Mother of God, particles of the relics of the protomartyrs Stephen and Pantaleon, and blood of St. Demetrius of Thessalonica. It is these relics that were inserted in the altar cross, made in 1611 by the jeweller Lazar Bogsha, on the orders of the Huguenotess Euphrosyne. It was a six-pointed cross, 52 centimeters high. The base of the cross was made from cypress wood and was coated by 22 golden and 20 gilt silver plates decorated with elaborate ornament, precious stones and pearls, and 20 small enamel icons. Lazar Bogshar was well familiar with the ancient Byzantine plicature techniques. His miniatures were not inferior to the best products of the Byzantine enameller's art. The great artistic mastery displayed in making the cross, its enormous cost equal to the revenues of a whole district, compactness of its iconographic design testify to the high spiritual importance that was attached to the exaltation cross by the church community of Polotsk. The cross was also a monument of Old Slavonic written language. A brief inscription on the reverse of the artifact informed of the name of this relic's maker. O Lord, help thy servant Lazar, surnamed Bogshar, who made this cross of Saint Saviour and Euphrosyne. The lateral sides of the cross contained an inscription, personal testament of the venerable Euphrosyne. May it never leave the convent, may it never be sold or given away. Should whoever disobeys and takes it away from the convent, may this holy cross never help him either in the ongoing age or in the age to come. However, despite this strict admonition, the cross had a very tragic fate. At the beginning of 1941, the cross vanished without leaving a trace. The attempts to ascertain its whereabouts continue. The cloisters, founded by the venerable Euphrosyne, turned, even in her lifetime, into the greatest spiritual, cultural and charity centres in Polotsk land and elsewhere in Rus. Schools, libraries, hotels, asylums for the poor, icon painting and jewellers' workshops were organised within them. After having completed all the arrangements, both internal and external, at her convent, the venerable Euphrosyne, in her declining years already, decided to fulfill her long-lasting wish, to visit the Holy Land. Presaging her approaching death, the Saint Higomenus aspired to visit the places related to the earthly life of Christ the Saviour, to end her earthly path there. Euphrosyne arrived in the city of Christ's suffering at the end of April 1173. The Venerable sent her servant Michael with the gifts to the Patriarch of Jerusalem to ask him to open for her the gate through which Christ entered Jerusalem. Although it had been done only in exceptional cases, the Patriarch agreed, and Euphrosyne entered Jerusalem through the Christ gate. On her first day in the Holy City, she went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. On the third day, having bowed to the life-bearing Holy Sepulchre and finished her prayer, the Venerable returned to the Russian monastery of the Most Holy Mother of God. There she shortly fell ill. Many years' feats of fasting, toil, and sorrows could not but weaken her body's strength. She was in her 70s. The difficult journey to Jerusalem, which took almost 4 months, also weakened her health. The author of the Life of Saint Euphrosyne makes it known that after 24 days of her illness, the Venerable received the last sacrament and quitted this world. In this way, the remarkable life of the first Russian saint came to an end. At the will of the descendant, her body was buried by her accompanying relatives at the monastery of Theodosius the Great. Since then, on her deceased day, on the 23rd of May, or the 5th June in the new style, an annual Requiem Mass is sung for the repose of her soul. The relics of the Venerable Euphrosyne did not remain in Jerusalem for a long time. On October 3rd, 1187, Jerusalem was captured by the Egyptian Sultan Saladin, who demanded that, within 5 days and after redeeming their lives, the Christians should leave the city. Returning to their homeland, the monks of the Russian monastery took the holy relics of the Polotsk princess with them, wishing to transfer them to Polotsk. It might be that the relics reached Turov, but due to the animosity between the Polotsk and Kiev princes, it was impossible to carry them farther. For this reason, the remains of the holy God-pleaser were brought to Kiev and laid in the remote caves of the Kiev Order of the Caves. Therefore, the Venerable Euphrosyne was the first Russian holy wife to be buried in the great Kiev monastery. For 700 years, the Orthodox believers were remembering and fondly venerating their saint, despite all the religious and historical vicissitudes. On the 22nd of April, 1910, on the third day of the Holy Easter, after the Divine Liturgy, the relics of the saint were taken from the old coffin and laid into a new cypress wood shrine. Then the relics of Saint Euphrosyne were delivered with great honours from Kiev to Polotsk. Thus, after a long-lasting journey, the Venerable Euphrosyne returned to the convent she had founded. The masterpieces of architecture, painting, and ornamental arts, in whose creation Saint Euphrosyne of Polotsk was involved, have turned into the tangible assets of the spiritual heritage of the Enlightener herself, and have exerted an essential impact on the spiritual and cultural development of other countries and nations.